Roll for initiative. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the relaunch of the State of the Game podcast, the only podcast on the Fools That Follow network that actually thinks kobolds are cute. My name is Dungeon Master Brandon Calloway, and I am joined by the one and only famous man himself on the Fools That Follow, Jake Frost. How's it going, man?
It is going. How you doing, buddy?
I gotta know. Is my game the first game you've played in a while?
15 years.
Wow.
15 years since I've played D&D. It was second edition.
Well,
and I don't even remember the character's name. It's been so long because I didn't play very long. I played for like a month.
Well, I'll tell you what, on the other side of that, I've killed so many characters as a Dungeon Master in my career, I can't remember the first one that I killed, so we're pretty well even. Anyway, we've been talking about the relaunch of the State of the Game podcast on the Fools That Follow and all kinds of podcasts here for, the last month and a half?
Yeah.
So, and it's finally here. We're popping the cherry on the very first episode, and away we go. So, we're just going to jump right in as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
What I want to tell everybody out there, being the Dungeon Master, again, my name is Brandon Calloway. I run a group that is currently running in the Wizards of the Coast. Actually, probably for all intents and purposes, the most popular tabletop role-playing game there is, Dungeons & Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent one, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Mm-hmm. I started playing games and running games in 2E, or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, back when you said it was the last time you played. So, in this game, I have either 9 or 10 players right now. It's hard to keep track.
Possibly 10.
Possibly 10.
10th might be joining next session.
By most accounts, that's a pretty large game. However, let's back up even one more step.
Mm-hmm. It's not a large game for you.
It's not a large game for me at all. However, all right, now, okay, so everybody knows that we're playing Dungeons & Dragons. Okay,
Yep.
Well, Dungeons & Dragons what? Are we doing a campaign setting? Are we doing custom campaign? For everybody that's listening along, in my personal game that you'll hear a little bit about on the State of the Game, I'm running currently the Splat, or campaign, in the Forgotten Realms setting, and we are currently working our way through the Horde of the Dragon Queen. So please check that out. It's a really good Splat book meaning extra content, or content that's already been pre-prepared for or by Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
We are currently going into the 5th episode, so if you guys want to check that out, it's available at any one of your local game shops. You can even buy it on Amazon and everything else. Shameless plug for Wizards
For
of
Amazon,
the
for
Coast.
people that aren't paying us yet. Yeah.
So anyway, what do you want to follow on what do you want to talk about on the State of the Game podcast?
Well, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna run through just a real brief overview of what our players are, what the characters that are being played are, their names, what they are, their race, their class. That way, when we refer to them, when we're talking about our specific games, everybody knows, oh, the half-orc, or oh, the tiefling, or
right.
whoever. The Satan-looking guy.
Right.
And then we'll kind of what we'll do is after we run through all of our player characters, we'll give a real brief Cliff Notes version of what has happened in our game so far to catch everybody up, because like you said, we're in the 5th session.
Fifth episode
Fifth episode
of the Horde of the Dragon Queen.
And
Horde
we've
of the
done
Dragon Queen book.
and well in our game we just wrapped up chapter 2 session 2.
In my games, I do things a lot differently. And most Dungeon Masters, they don't chronicle their games. So what I
Right.
do is, I don't want anybody to get confused by the fact that, okay, they're on the Horde of the Dragon Queen, they're on episode 5, but Jake is saying that they're on chapter 2, session 2.
Right.
It's completely different.
That's just how our games are chronicled.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the content.
Yeah, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Dungeon Masters out there that don't know what the heck it is that I
Yeah.
do, and I certainly won't be able to identify with what they do. But we'll get to it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
But wait, how many sessions have there been total so far since
There have been,
since group 1? Because now we're so big that there's 2 groups, which we'll get into.
since there has been, total there have been 11 sessions.
Okay. So we're gonna very briefly cliff note those 11 sessions. Hopefully it's not too boring for all of our listeners. I don't think it is. We're gonna run through it pretty fast. But before we do that, we're gonna get into who our player characters are. I guess I'll start with mine since I'm the only player character that's on the podcast this time. Hopefully, in future episodes, some of our other players will come on and they'll introduce themselves as their name and their character. But until they do, we're just going to refer to them as their character names. So I am playing Cormac. He's a half-orc barbarian. He fights with a greatsword most of the time. However, he does have 2 throwing axes that he likes to dual wield when the need arises. And I am currently at level 4. I don't know what any of the rest of the players' levels are at. We're all around 3 and 4. I believe we have one that is getting ready to level to 5.
Already dinged. He is level 5 as of last night.
Oh, he did.
He's level 5, and that person, in the interest of everybody, we're not going to use any real names or anything like that, unless they come on and they give our listeners their own
they
names.
give us the okay.
His character's name is Lucian Byrne. He plays a wizard, human wizard.
Yep.
But then, of course, we have some other characters in the game.
Well, I think Lucian. I was going to say something about Lucian real quick. I think he's one of the better players in the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. His favorite thing is everybody forgets the wizard, but believe me, nobody forgets the flippin' wizard. You can't forget the flippin' wizard.
Yeah.
Everybody's really good in their own right. Some have been playing in this game for longer than me, especially the monk. Krusk. He is a half-orc. He's been playing for a very, very, very long time. And that's another thing we'll get into, because our game actually encompasses a lot of age category. So, which brings us to our brand new player. Her name is Echo Starflower.
Yeah.
On the completely different side, or the completely different other end of the age spectrum.
She is 12.
She's 12 years old.
And she has never played D&D before a day in her life. She's watched some live streams of it, but she's never played before. She just had her first session last night. She rolled her first character last night. It's a Wood Elf Ranger.
Yep. There's two more characters in Group 1 would be Sylvar, a half-elven ranger. One of the most typical races in Dungeons and Dragons, half-elf ranger.
Yeah.
And then you've got Cider, a halfling rogue. Then you have Thorin, the troublemaking dwarf.
Thorin's really part of Group 2 now.
Well, through Group 2, yeah. Then you have, let's see, who else do we have?
The troublemaking dwarf. He really is a troublemaking dwarf.
Yeah, definitely. Then you have the tiefling, the guy that looks like Satan or a demon, Balathon.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then
how do you describe? He's a tiefling druid. Because he's not really a wizard, but he does magic.
Yeah. He likes nature.
He's nature here.
Nature here.
Which has become his tagline, his signature tagline.
Yep.
Nature here.
He almost reminds me of Monty Python-esque, you know what I mean?
There's that meme that, like, how all D&D groups begin, and it's, Lord of the Rings, and then how all D&D groups end, and it's Monty Python.
Right.
He skipped straight to Monty Python.
Oh, yeah, totally. Then we have human fighter, Varix. Let's see.
We really don't know anything about Varix's backstory.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Varix's backstory. There isn't one.
Yeah.
There is, but
he sort of showed up in Greenest one day, which is the town that it's the starting point. And he doesn't know how he got there, and that's where he's going from.
Let's see. Let me do a mental inventory here. So we've got of course Cormac. We've got Cider. We've got Varix. We've got Krusk. Lucian.
We got everybody.
Was that everybody? All right. There's a lot of players for Dungeon Master to keep track of.
Yeah, and all the NPCs.
Yes.
And I wanted to mention that before we start getting into the actual what has happened in our game, one of the things you told me is this isn't run like a normal D&D game where the world revolves around the players.
Correct.
Our players, all of our characters exist in this world, and everything is going to happen in this world whether or not we interact with it or not.
Yep, absolutely. The biggest thing about Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, GURPS, whatever role-playing game you're out there and you're doing, you're always going to have somebody that's in charge of the game. One player, and I'm going to read this right out of the player's handbook. One player takes on the role of Dungeon Master, the game's lead storyteller and referee. The DM creates adventurers for all characters who navigate its hazards and decide which paths to explore. The DM might describe the entrance to Castle Ravenloft, and the players decide what they want their adventures to do. Now, that being said, I run my games precisely like that. It's the adventurer's decisions on what they want to do. A lot of dungeon masters will tell you the scenario, and it's very linear
gaming, yeah.
My game is the epitome of a sandbox. You can go wherever you want to go, and it's impossible to find the end of the sandbox.
Yeah.
Sandbox gaming meaning you can do whatever you want to do,
anything,
whenever you want to do, at any time.
If like with a linear game, our player meets an NPC, and it said, "Do you want to do this or do you want to do this? What do you do?" You know, in our game, the player could be like, I ignore them and I go out the door and I start heading towards a totally different random town.
Sure.
Okay, well.
Yeah, it really... Those kind of games can really set your dungeon master back and have been known to end games because it's called game breaking or power playing.
Right.
It just takes a dungeon master or a game master experience to know what they can and can't do, and it's also a term known as shooting from the hip, which we'll get into in a later episode, of course. But basically, I want to catch everybody up on where we are at. And here on the State of the Game, what you're going to get is you're going to get the opportunity to listen to some of the clips of
some
my
game content.
game.
Yep.
You might find some things on a website that we're going to open up soon, but we'll catch you up. That way you can actually hear how the game is played.
And the main reason we're going to do this is because we move on to our discussion segment about things about the game, situations that have arisen between maybe two of the players and how the DM is going to handle that, or dynamics like today. One of the things we're going to be talking about is the dynamic of having a brand new 12-year-old player sitting at the same table as 30-year-old veteran players.
Right.
So and that has arisen from our game and this character joining. So that's why we're gonna catch everybody up on what's going on in the game, because that's where all of our discussion is going to stem from.
Yeah.
It's from the game.
I will say this though, because we are kind of doing two things. I've got a custom campaign that I'm running. However, I am also running out of published material from Wizards of the Coast in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, Hoard of the Dragon Queen. This splat book, at least to me, is amazing. However, I can't really talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because I'm one of the players.
Yeah, I can't really talk about it. Even the stuff that has done on the other side of that, I don't want to spoil things for people who are listening to this because it's the exact same content.
Right.
So the things that I'll cover are the custom campaign stuff. Safe to say that, yes, you're going to hear some different NPCs like Landragosa and Lennon Swift. We call her Leah.
Yeah.
You'll hear Tarbaugh Nighthill, things like that. All of these characters, they're fantastic characters, are found in the Hoard of the Dragon Queen book. So, again, check it out at your local game shop. You can't go wrong with it. You really can't. If you're a dungeon master that's just starting out, if you're a dungeon master like me who's got 20 plus years of experience running games, you can't go wrong. You can make it as exciting or as dull as you really want to.
Yeah.
So, Jake, take us somewhere. What are we doing?
You're going to have to take us first because I wasn't here for the first. I entered this game after the first few sessions.
Okay.
So, briefly, what happened to... This is because before myself and Balathon entered the game, it was just one group. So what happened with that first group before I got in?
We had a couple of characters begin this game. We had, let me see, Krusk, we had Cider, we had Lucian, Thorin, and Silvar. So we were rounded out.
Barracks?
Uh,
Did Barracks come in later?
I don't think Varix was here for the very first session.
Okay.
And if Varix is listening and we find out that he was here at the first session, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened was, and I think, man, my notes that I have from the first session, I didn't notate them very well. So
Yeah.
basically because I was running out of a splat book, so I didn't think I really needed to take down too many notes. But basically, in the beginning of the game, all the PCs were recruited to basically come to Greenest for one reason or the other. I mean, when it comes to each their individual backstories, which you can have them on and ask them what their backstories were.
Yeah. If we want to get into that much
At Roll for Initiative, I said, which means when you start the game, we got right into it, and I started to meld a custom campaign along with the published material immediately. So I had an NPC by the name of Vizier Muldoon by Krusk's Freedom. He was, in his backstory, he was kind of like a gladiator. I won't go into too much of it. Not a very good one, apparently, because he's level 1. But anyway, he saw promise in the guy, and he sent him to Greenest. And basically what happened from there, and again, it's going to be really hard for me to talk about this because I don't want to spoil published material. That's really kind of a no-no.
Right.
But what happened is all the characters met. It took a couple of hours in an actual intense role play at level 1, getting to know everybody, and we had some random encounters. Thorin almost died by a pack of rats in a hallway. Rats, of all things.
Yeah.
And we'll probably...
Thorin's almost died a few times.
Thorin dies... He's so close to death every session, it's not even funny.
Either he's doing something that is going to result in his death, or there are other players that are plotting his death.
Yeah, but
like me and Balathon were.
Once again, though, I mean, that's dwarven. That's a dwarf. That's a young dwarf for you. So he's always causing problems. He's always causing issues. Anyway, since my DMing campaign, or my DMing career has expanded for a long time, I picked up on old campaigns just to make this one a little fresh.
Yeah.
And I started to mix old storylines back in the timeline of the Faerun, or Calendar of Harptos. Calendar of Harptos being the major calendar, major timeline in all of Faerun. Faerun being the major land of existence, or the prime material plane. Prime material plane being the world.
Right.
This is the world that we live in. You know. All this stuff can be found in the Player's Handbook, 5th edition. So again, local game shops, guys.
Yeah.
That's really all I can tell you. Maybe Jake will be so kind as to put some links up to,
to
some of this material.
Yeah.
I'm saying a lot because I don't really know what I can say and what I can't.
Well, I mean, as far as the published material, it is available for anybody to read, anybody to play. If you are playing this specific storyline, and you don't want, and you aren't as far ahead of us or if you're not as far as we are into it, which we really aren't that far into it. Spoiler alert. I mean, that's always fucking safe to say.
Well, we can do that then. Yeah,
Just
spoiler alert.
I mean,
we'll go there.
Because we really can't get into what happens in a lot of this game without mentioning a lot of that stuff.
That is really true.
There is going to be some spoilers for that specific published content. But every game is different.
That's true.
So, I mean, the things that we're doing with this content may not happen at all in your game, or it may happen completely different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a fine line to walk, but...
This is why I like the Fools That Follow.
Yeah.
This is why I like the Fools That Follow, because you know what? Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Just like there's spoiler alert all over the place, but anymore, you just can't get away from spoilers. So
No.
you're right, Jake. So, basically, episode 1. In the very... Again, spoiler alert. 5, 4... 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're screwed. If you're listening now, your game is about to be ruined if you just bought the book and you haven't played it yet. So here we go. Okay, basically, episode 1 is called Greenest in Flames. After all of the characters kind of met each other, and they met up in basically the center of Greenest, the town came under attack by a bunch of cultists.
Yeah.
People wearing purple robes and everything, and the characters were going in and out of combat. Just regular random combat. They were fighting kobolds.
Yeah.
The cute little guys known as kobolds.
Yeah.
They were fighting acolytes and cultists in robes. They saw, fires that, thatched buildings with thatchers were on fire.
Right.
They were doing whatever they could to help out the townspeople that they didn't know.
Right.
Fast forward a couple of hours with combat and basically throwing the PCs into the throes of Dungeons and Dragons combat.
Right.
Rolling for initiative, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the very first thing that happens in episode 1 of any game is supposed to kind of end leaving the characters wanting more. Just
Oh, well, yeah,
just a
absolutely,
little
yeah.
bit, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to continue to play.
Yeah,
and
that's
also,
just like introducing anybody to a new game.
Yeah,
You let them win.
but there's also a level of difficulty there.
Yeah.
Whereas they haven't won everything, so they don't feel
yeah.
like they're on the top of the mountain and the game's over, right?
Right.
Well, at the very end of the first session, what happened was the characters had a really big fight in the courtyard of the Greenest Keep, and there was a half-orc, Krusk, who ripped the bell off of the keep and threw it and completely destroyed everything that ye old dungeon master had planned. Which, I kind of saw it coming, but, when it was successful,
Yeah.
he made his difficulty class roll and saving throw and all kinds of other things. Basically, everything was going in their favor.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, you know what? Okay, well, I'm going to have the very noob move on my part. I'm going to have a commander challenge a level 1 character, and of course he's going to get squashed. End of the session, and now they get taken capture and everything.
Right.
We'll go into the next game next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen. Level 1 character, Krusk.
The bare hand fighter half orc.
Yeah, the bare hand fighter half orc decimates Landragos the Cianrath.
Yeah.
In the book you can see he's a general. Well, not necessarily
Right.
general, but he's a commander of that particular force.
Half dragon.
Half dragon. He was not supposed to lose.
Yeah.
And he lost. So, first game, I have one character who's now dinging level 3. Dinging
Yeah.
meaning you're going up levels.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't... I was completely flabbergasted. Everybody else was like, ooh. 'Cause,
Yeah.
everybody that was playing at the game at that time has played with me in past campaigns. So
Yeah.
they thought, oh, we got one over on Brandon. Oh, my
Yeah.
God, we're all going to die. Crap.
Yeah.
There were a couple characters there were a couple players even rolled new characters thinking I'm going to come in at the next session with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Well, come session 2, we rolled right into episode 2. See, we were trying to run episode for episode
Okay. Yeah.
on games. So,
Yeah.
episode 2, Raiders Camp, they got introduced to Leos and Erlanther. And it just kind of spiraled from there. That game, I had to slow it
And
down.
Leosin is who?
Leosin is a monk who is a part of the secret society known as the Harpers.
Okay.
And that doesn't come out until like episode 4 in
Right.
the game.
Right.
But he's very integral to the part of really moving the story along. So that is absolutely more important than anything I can say about any NPC that's in the game at this point. Leos and Erlanther keeps things moving
Right.
for the player characters if the dungeon master can't do it himself.
Okay.
This game, this book is very, very, very capable for the first time DM,
Yeah.
like me, who's been doing it for forever.
Right.
So Leos and Erlanther is very important, and I slowed everything down. I mean, I did it right out of the book because I thought, oh, holy crap, wow, this happened, so I'm going to take it right out of the book, and it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen, and this Splat book tells you what to do if the unthinkable happens.
Right.
So it helps you along.
Yeah.
So I took it right out of the book, and that session was all about furthering storylines and what to do and so on and so forth. Well, we fast forward a little bit, and the characters end up going south because the cultists retreated,
Yeah.
obviously, because their commander,
because the commander
was
just got
defeated.
beat down in the courtyard. Yeah.
So the characters were sent south by a quest giver, if you will, to check out where all this loot went, and
Right.
ended up ransacking another cave, finding this half-dragon again,
Yeah.
and killing off some of his friends, and the guy
And his
ends up running
wife.
again. He ends up, his wife, which actually...
Is integral to some things that have happened.
Absolutely, and for those of you that have played or are playing Horde of the Dragon Queen, Frula Mondoff, in the published material, is not married to Landragosa Cianrath.
Oh, okay.
That is custom.
You made that.
I made
Okay.
that. So if you're reading along and you're trying to follow along and you're thinking, wait a minute, that makes no sense. Well, that's because some of this is custom.
Right.
So, anyway, they go down there, they come back, and this is right about where you came in.
Yeah, they came back to Greenest. And, Vizier Muldoon had recruited myself and Balathon, to come to Greenest and help with more because he's apparently the governor of Greenest, Governor Nighthill, is just constantly looking for adventurers to take care of his problems. And we got to Greenest, and no sooner had we gotten to Greenest than we met Lucian first, and then where was the other group? Lucian was in Greenest, and Thorin was in Greenest. Where was Group 1? Because it was at this point that we split into two groups.
Yeah. When you came along, you were at the inauguration to Group 2.
Right.
You and Balathon. Because when you joined the game, I actually pulled Lucian away. So, let me check.
Because Lucian was in Greenest for some reason. He was working on a spell. He was working on a new cantrip for something. He wants to control lightning, right?
Yes.
So I think that was the reason that he was in Greenest, and Thorin had just stayed behind with him, or
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. When they got back, the party was sent north
right,
to another
that's right.
city, and Thorin had fallen sick. He had fallen
That's
ill
right.
because of something that bit him.
Yeah.
And Lucian
Well, the rats,
stayed,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucian stayed behind to
heal him.
heal him and take care of him. Not necessarily heal him, just make sure that nothing bad had
It was
befallen
just
the buddy.
basically a good way to segue Group 1 and split it into two groups to make room for me and
Yes.
Balathon to join the party.
Yes.
So those two stayed in Greenest. The other group went up north to take care of the cultist problem.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, no sooner did me and Balathon get into Greenest, and we're meeting Lucian in the keep, and here comes good old Thorin running into the keep, going, and he was deadly serious about it when it happened. It was funny because he was just like, guys, you got to come with me. And I'm like, who are you?
You're right. Do we have the clip for that still?
Somewhere, maybe. I'd have to look for it. But, yeah, the only clips I know that I have are from the last game.
Oh,
Because
okay.
that actually was in a past episode. If you want to listen to that clip, I believe it was episode 128 of The Fools That Follow, after the credits. That clip was in there.
Yeah.
It was our preview. We did a trial run using the microphone, a different microphone to record the game. But yeah, it was. You can go listen to that clip. It's in. I believe it's issue 128 of The Fools That Follow. But after the closing credits. But anyway, Thorin comes down and it comes up from the bowels of the keep, and he's like, "You got to come with us." And me and Balathon and Lucian are like, "Why?" And we went down there anyway. We followed him down there, and the troublemaking dwarf led us to an orc chieftain that we didn't know was down there. Lucian, his first instinct was to kill it. Me being a half orc, I was like, no, don't kill it, please don't kill it. Thorin was bringing him medicine, so we did that. That was fun. That's how Group 2 all met, was
Yes.
fighting an orc. Well, the potential to fight an orc chieftain, and we found it because one of the things you'll hear in these clips of our game content, Brandon likes to play background music, background sounds. So like the sounds of Greenest, horses trotting, people talking, background noise. And it really makes for a good ambient atmosphere, and really lets you give yourself over to the role play and get into your character. Plug for another podcast called Getting Into Character. A couple buddies of mine up in Michigan have a podcast much like this one. Not D&D, called Getting Into Character. But let's get into character. And so we did that. We dealt with Ogra Blackblood, who we found out was the orc's name, the orc chieftain's name. And shortly after that, Thorin led Balathon into the church.
Yes.
I think was the next real big thing that happened, and they found a temporal plane shift where basically they transferred to another plane of existence. Okay, thank you. Yeah, they transferred to another plane of existence, and Thorin and Balathon got in a fight with a bunch of raptor cats.
Basically, just panthers. Now, raptor cats not being some weird monster, just
Yeah,
panthers.
that's what Balathon termed them, was raptor cats, because when they walked out the back door to the church, which the plane shift was in the middle of the church. Mm-hmm. So when they walked in the front door, they were in the Greenest. When they walked out the back door, they were in a whole different realm.
They were in a whole other realm, and I would be more than happy to say where that was. However,
That is a spoiler for
that is
our
a spoiler
game.
for our game.
Yeah,
so
there will be no spoilers for our specific game on
Yeah.
this podcast.
now a lot of listeners who are following along right now are probably like, "What? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Right now, yes, it probably is really hard to follow along. It is the very first episode of the State of the Game. It's not always going to be a recap like this. We're just
No.
trying to catch you up as to where we are right now.
Yeah. But yeah, they and a lot of it is so a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in the future make sense. So that plane shift and that those Panthers, because the Panther attack that Thorin led Balathon into.
Yes.
Thorin got attacked by the Panthers.
Yes.
He stuck his head out the back door and walked right into a trap. And I mean, it was literally, that's why they called them raptor traps or raptor cats, because it was the raptor trap from Jurassic Park. There was one that you could see and two that you couldn't. And
Yep.
if Thorin had walked out that door, the two were right in from the side. But
Clever girl.
which was what Balathon said. As soon as he saw the other one, and then he saw Thorin get attacked, he went, "Clever girl, nature here." So anyway, he got attacked. He got bit, which we found out later is they were were-panthers, and Thorin has the potential to be turned into a some kind of weird panther raptor cat thing
Into fun.
into
He
fun.
has the potential to turn into fun.
But because he was bitten, and they found out through some of the inhabitants of that other plane that they were were-panthers and that he could potentially change, Balathon ended up tying him up in a church and leaving him there and going off to find some part of an artifact that was going to be able to open and close this plane, or leave it open or close it permanently.
Yeah.
A level 1 character tore off into the wild by himself and left another level 1 character, or level 2 or 3, I can't
No, I
remember
think it
what
was. I think it was level 3.
level
by this
3
point.
character tied up by himself in another plane of existence in a church.
Yeah.
Well, Thorin ended this, and there is adult content in our games,
Yep. What happened after
very
that?
adult themes.
What happened after that was not not conducive to younger listeners' ears.
No.
It was very adult in content. And as a dungeon master of such a long time, I tend to keep things interesting for all age groups. So sometimes there'll be adult themes in my games. Other times that there won't be.
Now that we have a 12-year-old
Now we have a
player, there are going to be
12-year-old
a
player, yeah.
lot fewer of those. But this was before her.
Yes, something that we will refer to wholeheartedly and tongue in cheek as the Dose Do incident.
The Dose Do incident happened, and it was. I don't. I'm trying to figure out how to word this delicately, but
Thorin was taken advantage of
sexually.
by some other bandits that made their way, found him. They took everything he had, took advantage of him sexually, and then left him to die.
Yeah.
So basically, from there, our listeners are probably like, "Holy
shit!"
crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I don't mean to make light of that situation at all by laughing, but
but it was funny when it happened.
it was funny when it happened because of, I would never force that on someone to roleplay. That is definitely not the kind of dungeon master I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the kind of that's basically just where the character took it, really.
Mm-hmm. And to not to alleviate anybody going, "What the hell, you're doing this to just your players?" The person who plays Thorin is our DM's son. Yep. They do have a relationship that's very close.
And I will
So-
say very quickly that my son is not like 9.
Yeah.
My son is 17 years old.
Yeah.
So
Old enough to understand what was happening.
right. It's not. I'm not a horrible father here. Okay.
And he did RP it perfectly.
Yeah, he did roleplay it perfectly. But moving on after that,
After the Dose Do incident.
take us on after that. Dave.
Well, shortly after that, I had to do a private episode or a private session because I had leveled up to 3 as well, and as a barbarian, I got a couple new abilities that I had to go hunting for. So this is where we really came into contact with. I really got to come into contact with some of our NPCs.
Yes.
Castellar the Red, who is he is the oldest living resident of Greenest. He's a dwarf. Greenest was basically built around this keep that he is in charge of. He has an axe named Dahlia. who his former wife, Spirit, is trapped in.
Yes.
I also got to come into contact with Leah, who is one of the other NPCs. She's also an adventurer.
Yes, her actual name is Linan Swift. Her first appearance is in episode 1. And she's been in the game since then, but that's the first time that Cormac actually had a chance to meet her.
Yeah, and I took her hunting with me. And learned she is a badass, because on this hunting expedition, which was a private session with just me and Thorin and the DM, it wasn't any other group, we got in a fight with 2 death hounds or death dogs and a dire wolf.
Yes.
And one of the death dogs almost killed Leah. I ran over, drove my sword into its neck or something like that, just to distract, or one of its necks, to distract it, and then she took it from there. Even half dead, killed the other death dog.
Yes.
We killed the dire wolf, and then that was when we found out that miraculously Thorin had returned from this other plane of existence. We learned that he was transported back by a character that a lot of you guys will know who it is.
Well, I don't want to say the name because that is definitively custom, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for it. So I pulled,
and it's not really him. We learned later.
No, it's not. It's not actually him. But I'd really rather not say the name.
Okay.
Just basically because that's a
very powerful character.
A very powerful character, and for experienced players and dungeon masters alike, I'm going to instantly draw the ire of them by using such a character. But safe to say, it's not him. But I'm still not going to say the name.
Okay. Well, he was transported back to our plane of existence, to Greenest, by this extremely powerful character. And then we got the introduction of our favorite kobold, B. Jones!
B. Jones! B. Jones. You know, I'm pretty well known for, allowing players to play any class, any race. It doesn't matter. Even races that are in the Monsters Manual. As long as I know that you are capable of doing it and know the monsters and how they act. I will also do the same as non-player characters. Now, I love kobolds.
Right.
I absolutely love them. They're fun-loving. They're carefree. When I first started, at the very tender age of 6 or 7 or something like that, very first character or first thing I killed was, I believe, a hobgoblin. And my dungeon master at the time, much older than me, obviously, was using goblins and hobgoblins as class characters. He was using them with different styles of weapons and different classes and everything else. That's where I got the idea.
Okay.
And as through the ages, you could say, came B. Jones. B. Jones is a little kobold. He's only 4 years old, so he's still a youngling. And
to best describe B. Jones's behavior, if you've had any of our listeners have read the Darkness comic books, B. Jones is basically a Darkling. He acts like a Darkling. He wears a stolen work shirt that has a patch on it that says B. Jones. That's where he gets his name. And he's very, very childlike. He is a lot of fun. He carries around a spoon. That is his most prized possession. That is, he's sharpened and serrated on one edge. He's done very vile things with the spoon.
right.
Well, yeah, B. Jones is one of our favorite characters, and I'm sure you'll hear his name recurringly because we love him, and we basically want to take him with us on every adventure just because we can be entertained by him.
He's like the comic relief of the game.
Yeah, very much so. And then, but the whole reason we were brought to Greenest was to deal with this land shark problem, this bullet. And our next session, after the private session, we got into the bullet fight.
Group 2. The reason why Group 2 was brought to Greenest was to deal with the bullet.
Right.
Which ended up being a dire bullet, which was massive.
It was huge. Cormac almost died fighting the bullet because, like an orc, I ran straight at it with my sword. After we blew it up with 5 pounds of alchemist fire that was inside of it and slowly leaking out of all of its wounds.
So affectionately also called as Anfo.
Yeah. And we poisoned it because we had some poison. I remember what was poisoned under it. And we put the poison and the alchemist fire in the thing.
Yep. It was dealing massive fire damage, massive poison damage. It was stunned. It was bad. I mean, you guys killed it. Well,
Right.
Lucian killed it.
Lucian killed it.
With a magic missile.
With a magic missile, yeah. It was in its death throes. It was getting ready to die. It was actually calling more bullets to its location when Lucian just he got rocked by a shockwave and casted just the first thing that came to his head, and it was a magic missile, and it flew straight into his mouth, blew it up, and took its last XP.
Yep.
So after the bullet fight, we all decided to return to Greenest. Group 1, somehow I can't remember all the details of it. There was a portal that opened up.
Group 1 had basically come back, and then they were sent to Baldur's Gate.
That's right.
Via a Dimension Door scroll. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they actually just last night were sent north to Waterdeep, a 770-mile trip in an 11-carriage caravan.
Right.
So, and then Group 2, as of last night.
Well, we had, with the return of Balathon, when they went through the portal to Baldur's Gate, when the portal closed, there's standing Balathon, and he was returned to us much in the same way Thorin was by this extremely powerful character, who shall not be named.
Right. It's like the Voldemort.
Yeah, it really was. And that's when we learned of the capture of Landragosa, the half dragon. He had come back to Greenest to turn himself in for his crimes.
And this is, again, from what I will say as a disclaimer, a lot of what's going on with Group 2 is very custom. Because Landragosa was, for all intents and purposes, done. After episode 1, he didn't even really need to be in the game after that.
Okay.
After episode 2, for sure. However, I really liked the character.
And I really like him too.
So I wrote more content for him and have reinserted him back into Horde of the Dragon Queen as a newer NPC.
And he's actually the quest giver for
Several
Group 2.
things. Yeah.
But he turned himself in. We had a trial for him. Group 2, we had a trial for him there in Greenest. With Keon Lynn, who is Leah's husband, an elf, who's also the protector of the Greenfields, where Greenest is. The bar owner was also a member of that jury. Castellar the Red was our judge, and then myself and Balathon were also jurors. Thorin was a witness because he was part of Group 1 when they went up and scouted ahead, and they killed Landragosa's wife, and supposedly had smashed his eggs, and he was quite pissed at everything. Anyway, we found out that Governor Nighthill, who had been in charge of Greenest since we'd arrived, was an imposter. The real Governor Nighthill had been buried beneath or imprisoned beneath the keep.
In the cisterns.
Thorin actually found him when he was in his holding cell because he was going to be facing charges for disobeying orders. They were not ordered to attack Landragosa's camp. They were ordered to scout. And then they went in and they killed his wife, which is why he was pissed, why Landragosa was pissed. So he was going to be facing charges as well, which is one of those interesting things that developed in a game like this where Balathon and I, we were plotting on how to take care of the problem that Thorin presented by being there, because he was literally the only one that stood for Group 1's actions when we weren't there. So we knew that Thorin somehow had to be punished. Castellar the Red had decreed that unless we could come up with something, Thorin and Landragosa were going to fight in one-on-one combat to the death. And he would have won. Landragosa would have destroyed Thorin, and that would have been the end of a player character.
There's no doubt in that. And for those that are keen-eared, if you will, several people will be like, well, wait, I thought a level 1 character bested Landragosa. Well, keep in mind...
At quarter strength.
That was quarter strength, and there were 20s involved in that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you had really
20s
crappy...
were rolled, I had really bad rolls, and a player character had really great rolls, so...
At a quarter strength,
Landragosa was pretty easily defeated. But at full strength, there's absolutely no way.
And that's what he would have been coming at Thorin with, was full strength. He was going to... Landragosa was going to kill one of our player characters. And we knew it, so we had to come up with something else. Our plan, initially, before we found out that Nighthill was an imposter, and the real Nighthill was buried in the cisterns by Rezimir.
More custom content, by the way.
Yeah. He was buried in the cisterns by Rezimir, who's the leader of the Cult of the Dragon.
As far as we know.
As far as we know so far. The leader of the Cult of the Dragon. Well, our plan for Thorin was Balathon and I had talked days prior to this session, and we had tossed around ideas of cutting his hand off, mutilating him. We thought about cutting his beard off, and for a dwarf, that would have been interesting.
Right.
We actually told Thorin that after the session, and we were like, we were going to cut your beard off, and he's like, I would have left the party. DM instantly went, Brandon instantly went, you'd have died. I'd have killed you the first day you left the greenest, you know. But that all went down. We ended up freeing Landagrosa because of because of the things that he had gone through, and he had also helped protect Greenest without any of the player characters knowing he had stopped an orc attack on Greenest. So we figured that he had been punished enough. He lost his wife. His eggs were smashed. He was nearly killed when he fought the orcs. He had been punished enough, so we freed him. And told him that if he wanted to go after Rezimir, that he had our swords and our shields and our axes.
Yes, and he was actually exiled from the Cult of the Dragon.
Right,
because he let his wife and officer of the cult die.
Yeah, die. Yeah.
So
he is now exiled, and he wants revenge on Rezimir for killing his eggs or smashing his eggs, who we think was responsible for it. And so he wants Rezimir's head on a pike, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I want this quest. This sounds fun. I want to do it. And I had talked to Balathon, and I talked to Thorin days prior to the session, and the day of the session, I was like, forget the other plane, forget everything that's going on. Don't worry about that, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You can't do anything about it. You're either going to be sucked back into this plane, or you're not. Don't worry about it. Let's focus on Landragosa's quest. Let's focus on giving him our shield and our sword, which we did. So after all of that, it was a big and you'll notice not a lot of combat for Group 2.
Yeah, that's the
Since
big
we've
thing.
started.
The biggest thing about some of my games is they're very Game of Thrones-esque.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of factions. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of storytelling. When fighting and battle happens, it's always intensely difficult. Mm-hmm. And it means something. It's not meaningless. Like, my players have to fight something so they can go up a level or two. Mm-hmm. The game will always be scaled to their particular level. Mm-hmm. It will never be too hard, but then at the same time, it will never be too easy.
So we've got a character now that just dinged level 5, and that's going to open up a can of worms for everybody.
And that means that the difficulty will ramp up a little bit, because the character that did hit level 5 is Lucian, and now he has things like Fireball and Lightning Bolt. Really nice, powerful spells that can do a heck of a lot of damage. So,
like, I know I'm personally 3,500 XP away from level 5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got a ways to go. Now, granted, I don't know what last night's session is going to give me, but it's not going to give me level 5.
No.
So, it'll get me a little closer.
Everything does.
Yeah. But, we had after the big trial and everything, it was a big. I mean, after these sessions, I mean, everybody just kind of leaned back and was like, "Holy crap!"
It's like a big decompression in the room.
It was. It was a very tense session for the most part. After the trial and everything, we still had some time left in the session, so we all decided to retire to the bar. We needed drinks.
Yep.
And one of the jurors was the bar owner, and he opened up the bar. We went out there, and Balathon walked around town, and he was heading to the bar, and this is when Satan, found a 40-year-old elf a 40-year-old elf basically looks like she's 16.
Yeah.
She's being played by a 12-year-old. This is where that whole dynamic comes in.
Yes.
A 12-year-old girl is playing this very young elf.
Yes,
and
our little Echo.
Yeah. Satan found her sitting on a wall in Greenest. And then brought her to the bar.
Right. As only Satan would.
Right.
We're kidding, of course, Balathon. Balathon being a red tiefling who looks a lot like a demon.
He is a red tiefling. He has horns. He has a tail. He has purple hair.
He looks like a cartoon Satan.
Yeah, he does. He really does. He's always smiling, though, and he has a British accent. It's very funny. But yeah, he brought her to the bar where we were all kind of decompressing, and at this point I was fully invested in the RP, and he walks in with the elf, and I went, "Really? We're going to have a talk later."
Cormac instantly going to a bad place.
Because before he had walked in, I had my head under the tap and was just opening it up and letting beer go in, or mead go in, you know.
Sorry to break this here memory lane, but may have a tracker to help us on our adventure here to find
The girl? Is she sitting back at the table?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Can she hear us?
She's a wanderer.
I know you can hear me. I talk like you're not there anymore.
Yeah.
The girl?
Yeah, she's a wanderer, evidently, and I don't know this place, do you? I mean, he knows, from what I understand, he got his own house. I got a house. I got a bed. Might be helpful. Because I know trees, but not these. Not these trees.
She's an elf. Full?
Yeah.
How old is she?
Young.
How young?
Didn't ask.
Feel free to speak up.
We're just talking like it's...
It's like,
Echo, it was? How old are you?
I didn't know that those even existed.
40-year-old elves? Yes, they exist. They're usually still suckling on their mother's tit.
I thought they were, I thought there was like a... I've never seen anything under a couple
I think
hundred.
it's looking real.
You looking at?
I'm making sure you're seeing my facial expressions.
Just saying. Elves know. Hey, I'm just a druid. I know some things about the nature. And the moon.
What kind of fucked up shit are you druids into?
So, are you saying she wants to join us on our...
She would like to help us, yeah. At least with this area.
With what area? With Greenest?
Yeah, around the area.
Is she willing to
Track.
come to the bar? Did he tell you what we're about to do?
I mentioned the dragon.
You mentioned it. Oh, there was a dragon involved.
That's all he told me.
Okay.
The dragons and the magical poof and stuff like that.
And you want to help us with going after the head of the cult of the dragon and killing her? Sure. Your funeral. My point was to get drunk. So, that was nearing the end of last night's session, and we're all talking in the bar. We're talking about the fact that me and Varix were talking about the fact that Landragosa wants to fight Krusk in honorable combat, non-lethal honorable combat. Again, because they've fought and he'd been bested, and they wanted to fight again to really see who the final warrior was.
Well, basically, what had happened there with in between Landragosa and Krusk is, of course, Krusk. He bested him the first time. Landragosa got the win the second time.
Right.
Well, Landragosa wants a third shot.
Yep,
And
they're tied. This
Varix-
is the 2 out of 3.
Varix wants it to be non-lethal.
Right.
Landragosa wants it to be honorable and to the death. He wants it to be full on, no more draws. Let's find out who the better warrior is.
And I'm torn between that, because on one side, we could use Krusk. On the other side, I like Landragosa's character, and I don't want him to die.
Well, that's because, Cormac and Krusk have only had, a half a session together?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, if I have more
Wasn't
sessions with him,
familiar.
I might not like him, and I
Yeah.
might be like, no, let Landy kill him.
Landy. So,
But we were in the bar, and we were talking about all that, and then we were getting introduced to Echo, and all of a sudden we heard a big boom come from the church, and we found out that we all ran out of the church, ran out of the bar, headed towards the church. We find a character named Jacob, what's his last name?
Manning.
Jacob Manning, who is a previous character from games that you've run before.
Yes.
He's not from here, and he has what Cormac lovingly refers to as a boomstick. Because I can't say gun in game. But
Yep.
he has a gun. He has a flintlock pistol.
Yes.
which is science that has not reached the Sword Coast yet.
Yes.
So
Well, it has, in the way of an arquebus. But in 5e, there is nothing in there for an arquebus or a carbine or a flintlock. I haven't seen any. I mean, I might have overlooked it,
Right.
But I haven't seen anything in there yet.
So
in
we're
the player's handbook.
so we're really treading into uncharted territory, bringing a character that can wield a flintlock and make them because he made it in this world.
Yes.
With having a character that can do that on the Sword Coast and interacting with our characters, because Thorin is now obsessed with getting one.
Yes.
To the point that it's going to bring us to one of our discussion topics is metagaming, because Thorin said gun in game, and he was docked 50 XP points for a metagame.
Yes.
You know what would help me? One of those guns.
Meta 50 experience.
Oh, dang it! I knew it was coming too. As soon as,
I did too.
as soon as he busted out that card, I knew it was coming. But that pretty much wraps up where we are, and it does bring us to two of our discussion points. One being metagaming, which I think we can touch on that first because it's probably going to be the quicker one.
Yay! Discussion time.
Yeah, we can get segue right into that. Metagaming, yeah. Thorin used the word gun in game, and for any of our listeners that that are thinking about playing D&D, haven't played before, or don't know what metagaming is. Metagaming is basically when you use information in game, in character, that your character should not know.
Right.
Information that you know as a player, like you've overheard two of the other players talking about something, and then you use that information for your character in game. Like Thorin knowing the term gun. That's a metagame. He shouldn't have known that term. And sometimes, like, there was a few sessions ago where Thorin was doing it a lot, and he got warnings. And then it was, you do it again, you're getting XP docked. And he didn't do it.
That's something very characteristic of new players, though.
Right.
And you have to be.
It's one of the things you have to watch.
Yeah, as a dungeon master, you have to be really careful to dock people when it comes to, especially taking away experience. Experience is very hardly earned,
Right.
So, but some metagaming is one of the most serious offenses when it comes to role playing because it can destroy
ruin
a
a game.
game
It can
very,
ruin it,
very
yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
But it's very characteristic of new players, and to circumvent that.
So there's some lenience.
Yeah, to circumvent metagaming, I always tell players, first and foremost, three things. Number one, know your race. Number two, know your class. Number three, take notes.
Yep.
Just take notes.
And I suggest doing the way I take notes when you're gaming is you have your notepad out, and a lot of players have multiple notepads out. I have 3. But my notepad for in-game notes is I have an asterisk, and that's a meta note. That's something that my character does not know. But then if I've taken a note on that, and then later in game I learn that, my character learns that, oh cool, I can erase the asterisk. Then my character knows that.
Absolutely. And in games like this, very drama-style games, and again, I'm going to use the term of Game of Thrones-esque games, it's really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Because, again, metagaming can destroy your game. There are, of course, games out there, run Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, whatever, that are just dungeon crawl games. You're not going to have really a lot of role play.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, you're at entrance A, find entrance B, and then destroy all the little creatures in between.
Right. And those are very
fantastic
linear
creatures.
storyline games. It's you are going from A, kill B, get to C.
Yes.
And that to me, it's fun when you're doing it on a console.
Yep.
But in an RP game, I want the freedom. It's like it's the difference between playing Skyrim and playing Call of Duty.
Right.
That's as literal translation as I can get. And this is Skyrim. You can do basically whatever you want. You have quests, you have side quests. You can just ignore everything and build a house.
Yep.
If you want to.
There's characters.
I'm getting ready to.
I've had players before keep an actual quest log. Like in
like in Skyrim,
like in MMOs and things.
Yeah.
They keep a quest log of everything. So
this character, if I go back and talk to this character, they wanted me to do this.
Yes.
Like I got a little side quest during when we were taking care of the bullet. I failed to mention that we used one of the bells from the church to lure the bullet. Bullets are attracted to sound. That's why they eat towns, because of all the sound from a town. We used the bell and we had Krusk punch it because he's really big and strong. And
Yes.
he punched the bell and he made it gong. And I had received a side quest from Alpha, the bartender or the bar owner, that said, I've lived across the street from that bell for years. I hate that damn thing. If you can make sure it doesn't come back, I'll give you 1,000 gold. And I went, in my head, 5 pounds of alchemist fire under it. It ain't coming back.
Right.
We have an accord because this is an easy 1,000
At
gold.
1,000 gold, I mean, that's crazy to make, to destroy. He must have really hated that thing.
And it did. It got blown into about 15,000 pieces and blew out the side of the bullet. Which our elf protector, Keon Lin was it Keon Lin? Was not happy about that, or was it Aiden?
It was
the priest.
Aiden Falcon Moon, the priest of Shanti. He was not very.
He was not pleased about that, and he goes, "I got 15,000 reasons or 15,000 things on my mind, and and the bell. You can't even bring the bell back." And I went, "Well, the bell's in about 15,000 pieces out in the green fields. You can go get it if you want." There's side quests and stuff like that to do, which is always fun. But bringing it back to metagaming, take notes, and that is a good idea to keep a quest log.
Yes.
Because if you run into somebody and they're like, hey, I have a problem with this, and if you decide right then and there, I can't really deal with that. I'm on this whole thing with Landergosa, but if you survive your whole thing with Landergosa and you make your way back down to Baldur's Gate or wherever that you were given this side quest, you can be like, oh yeah, hey, I need to stop. If you're going to take a rest overnight, you can stop in at that guy's house and be like, well, what did you need, by the way? I have a couple of days to kill.
Yep.
And you might be able to get a side quest and take a private session to go do it.
It absolutely keeps your game moving. Mm-hmm. It absolutely keeps your game moving.
And get you XP.
Yes, absolutely. And I run on the. And again, this isn't something that's well known through Wizards of the Coast. There are experienced tracks. You have slow track, you have normal track, you have fast track. I tend to run everything on slow track because I like long, expansive games.
Right.
I don't like my characters to hit 10th and 20th level inside 8 sessions.
Right, yeah.
So...
Yeah. And one of the cool things about... the background for my character is I'm actually playing Cormac the way I created him. He is the son of my dad's D&D character from 30 years ago when he played first edition.
Yes.
And my dad's character's name was Cotharis, and that is eventually, more than likely, I don't know what's in Brandon's head and how he's going to incorporate it, but I'm fairly certain it's going to come in, something with Cotharis, with my dad's D&D character. He's going to become an NPC in my game, and there's going to be a quest somewhere for that I'm going to have to deal with my long-lost father. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be it's going to be really cool. But that's another reason to take notes and have a developed backstory. And even if you can't come up with something off the bat, hell, sometimes you can come up with it in game. Like last night's game, I was coming up with backstory notes off the top of my head because me and Varix were talking in the bar, and we were talking about Krusk and the fact that you had told me. Because when we created the character, I didn't have any idea for a backstory other than the fact that he was Cotharis' dad, or he was Cotharis' son. And then you told me where he was from Thousand Maws, part of Thousand Fists tribe, and then I was captured. And then I read a little bit about Thousand Fists, and I said, okay, my rival tribe is Ripped Gut, and I started developing a little bit more. Well, then you had told me that I know Krusk.
Yes.
I had known of him before I ever got to Greenest. Krusk was also from Thousand Fists, and he was one of the top 3 fighters in the tribe. Mm-hmm. So I was telling Varix this, and off the top of my head, just telling him, okay, here's the difference between me and Krusk. Krusk is a fighter, blah, 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 but my father, Cotharis, was a half-elf. He was very honorable, and my orc mother raised me how she thought that Cotharis would have wanted me raised. So more with more elf traits and more honor than a typical orc. Mm-hmm. And all of this was off the top of my head. So, I mean, that's one way that you can, if you can think quick enough and and let your backstory evolve organically in the game, it can be even better.
Yeah.
Than coming in with a set idea of this is exactly who my character is. Because you said Varix is like that. He won't.
Yeah, he takes his time with
Yeah.
everything. And a lot of players, too, they take their time with everything. But this comes with a very healthy give and take from your Dungeon Master, too. Like, I don't want anybody to think that, it's a good idea to just bring it up in roleplay with another player character. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm a part of this, amazing wizards cult. Or, you don't want to do that.
Yeah. You don't want to god mod your character.
Yeah,
in the middle
never
of a game.
god mod your character. Don't power play. It's a really big difference in between, and I guess this is a good segue into the next topic, discussion topic. A lot of newer players,
Yeah.
will tend to try to power play. Mm-hmm. But power playing with a new character,
They want to play Superman.
yeah, everybody wants to be Captain America. Everybody wants to be Iron Man. Everybody wants to be Batman. And they all want to be superheroes.
Not everybody wants to be Hawkeye.
Right. or Squirrel Girl or
Squirrel
whatever.
Girl, yeah.
But
Oh,
then
God.
on the other side, you've got these grizzled veterans who have been playing this game and they sit back and they watch the new characters make mistakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes the veteran players aren't so apt to help them.
Yeah.
Because they know if they do, they're just going to destroy the game of a newer player.
Right.
Now,
Let them make the mistakes.
yes,
let them learn.
make
yeah.
the mistakes. Now, in this game, the oldest player here is 40 years old. Mm-hmm. 40.
And that's
That is Krusk.
Krusk. Okay.
And then, of course, we have Echo, who is 12 and has never played a game before, ever.
Never.
I am overjoyed.
Oh, it's awesome. Like, she came over. She's actually a friend of Arcdium's daughter, who's also the same age. And she came over to the house, and the plan was you're just going to watch.
Yep.
She wanted to play. She was really interested in playing. And I was talking to her a little bit, and she came downstairs and she was talking to you a little, to Brandon a little bit, and you asked her, how much experience do you have with D&D? And she said, none. I've watched some live streams of the game being played. That was it. That was her sole experience. So we went upstairs. Myself and Echo went upstairs with Thorin and Balathon, and because we knew that if she was going to be brought in, she was going to be part of our group. So we all went upstairs and we kind of started talking to her. And I asked her just point break. I was like, "Do you have any idea of what kind of character you want to play?" She went, "Yep, I want to be an elf, and I want to be a scout archer." And I said, "So like a ranger?" And she goes, "I don't know." And I opened up the book and I was like, "That's a ranger." And I went back downstairs and I was like, "Hang on a second." And I went back downstairs and I went, "Brandon, she wants to be an elf ranger. You want us to just let her roll her character?" And he went, "Sure." So I grabbed a character sheet and some dice, and we rolled her character right then, and she jumped right in feet first. And
yeah.
It was awesome.
It was great. I mean, I love to see that. I am absolutely overjoyed the fact that I get to be the very first Dungeon Master she ever has.
Yeah.
I want to give her the best experience that she can have. That way, she'll take this
keeps
game to her
playing.
friends, and she
Yeah.
keeps playing. And this is where
She'll
the
become
gaming,
a DM herself
yes,
someday.
she might.
Yeah.
She might grow to make games. You never
Yeah.
know. This is what keeps the gaming industry alive.
For those who remember, and for those who will experience it for the first time.
Absolutely,
Ever,
my son, Thorin.
Yeah.
the guy, oh, he's had some rough times. In
He has. he did just get rewarded very heavily. For
Yes,
some of the
and
things
I'll
that
tell
he's
you
done.
what, this is his first game too.
Yeah.
And it is phenomenal. He's doing great. I mean, we give him a lot of crap because he is 17 and he's basically one of the guys.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's why those do happen.
yeah, that's why those do happen. So, but anyway, just this morning, my daughter, she said, hey, if Echo is going to play, or if my friend Echo is going to do this, then I think maybe I want to do this. So I can't tell you how. I can't tell you how. I mean, for a father
Yeah.
to have his kids say,
I wanna
"Hey,
play."
Dad, I want to do this."
Yeah.
I am absolutely overjoyed. I mean, it's amazing. Now, my wife, that's not going to happen. We're a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, she's just like, you guys are loud. Like, you don't know what was going on down there.
Yeah. So
There was a bullet. It almost killed me.
yeah, but the separation of veteran and newbie
Yeah.
is intense. Like when I sit back, I see all of the mistakes.
Yeah.
And as a dungeon master, I try to help whenever I can, but at the same time, I can't dungeon master meta. You
Right,
know?
right.
So it is incredible.
Well, I
And
mean, look, for the first 2 sessions, you let me roll combat completely wrong.
yes.
I was rolling combat way wrong. I wasn't rolling my attack rolls properly using my mods like I should have, and I wasn't rolling my damage properly using the proper mods.
Eventually, I came to you and I said, "Hey, look, dude, you're doing this. You're doing this.
You're like, you need
have
to read this. Like, you
have
didn't
to
even
be
say
able
this
to-
is what you're doing. You said you need to read combat.
Yes.
And that's why I sat down and read combat again, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, I am not rolling that properly at all,
Yeah.
because what happened during the bullet fight shouldn't have happened.
Yes, that is way true. And the biggest thing about that is with newer characters is know your class and race.
Yeah.
If you know how your character is supposed to be played, then you can't
Mm-hmm.
go wrong. At the same time, with master veteran players, hey man, know your class and race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you may be able to know 2nd edition and THAC0, 2-hit armor class 0, like the back of your hand.
Right.
You go into 3 and 3.5, you might be great. You go into 4, and let's face it, WotC, nobody played 4. You went over to Pathfinder, okay? you went over to Pathfinder, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm familiar with this.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you say, okay, 5, I'm pretty good. I know what it takes. They're not going to change too much. Backing up
they
Cinderella,
did.
you need to read the book.
Yeah.
You know, so
And coming from 2nd, which I don't remember a whole lot about 2nd edition, because I mean, like I said, it was 15 years ago when I played. I was a teenager, and I didn't play for very long, not long enough to remember the game.
Yes.
So it really was almost like I was coming in just fresh, just brand new.
Yeah.
I knew nothing.
which is why I left Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder and the Pathfinder Chronicles Diff. Paizo has an amazing product, but Wizards of the Coast is where I was raised. It's my home, you know. And when I said for the very first time to my new players in this game, roll for initiative, it felt like I was coming home.
Yeah.
You know, so it was so comfortable. And I'll tell you, the reason why I wanted to do this discussion topic with new characters and
new players,
and new players and older characters is I look at Thorin, who is absolutely, and to be very honest with you, one of the best battle practitioners in the game right now.
Right.
As far as his very first fight as a
Against the
fighter
rats.
trying to hide in a bush. But, you know,
Yeah.
we got past that, and he started to know his class, he started to know his race, he read the book, he knows everything, and then we have somebody who's been playing the game for 25, 30 years,
Right.
and knew nothing about his character, nothing at all, and being Krusk.
Yeah.
And then just last night, or, well, it was actually last week, he said, hey man, I'm playing, I'm not connecting with the character, I'm not sure what's up, what do I do? And I said, it's very easy. Read the book.
Yeah.
Know your class, know
Yeah.
your race, know what you can and can't do. Well, he did that.
Yep.
And last
And he
night,
came back, and because he multi-classed, he multi-classed over to a monk, right?
he went to multi-class, and then we said, all right, and we retconned it, and I allowed him to drop his level in barbarian and just be straight monk.
Okay, so now he is just a
straight
half-orc monk. Okay,
So last night he used missile deflection.
right.
Didn't even know he could do it.
Yeah.
But when he asked me if he could do it in his situation, I said, hey, absolutely.
Yeah,
I knew right away
he had read.
he did it, and now he's playing the way he should. Which last night is the first time since session 1 I actually saw the player and the character connect.
Yeah.
So the more you know, the more you know.
Yeah.
Knowing is half the
Knowing
battle.
is half the battle. I'm sitting there looking at you like, say it. Say it.
It's like that old star now, or the more you know. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It is.
So
The reading rainbows thing.
yeah. So when it comes to newer players and older players, there is no difference
Yeah.
as long as you both can connect and know your racing class.
And I think that's going to be one of the fun things with Echo, and is because she has accidentally picked a character that is just like her.
Oh yeah.
She's super shy. She has never sat down with any of us before.
Yeah.
She met all of us for the very first time yesterday. The only person she knew in that room was you and Thorin.
To be honest, I'd never seen her at all ever before.
Oh,
until
wow.
she walked downstairs with my daughter.
Okay. But she knew Thorin, right?
Well, no, not at all.
Okay,
No.
well, so she knew absolutely no one who she was
knew
sitting down
no
with.
one, and she walked in knowing she was going to be the youngest person
She
in
did.
the room.
She knew exactly what she was getting
And
into.
when she
still
sat down, she might have been shy, but I could see the look in her eyes.
Oh, she's mesmerized.
I
It was
am
awesome.
so shocked that she. that she is.
That a 12-year-old sat down with a table full of 30 to 40-year-olds.
Yes.
And played D&D, and granted, she was only in well, she was in the entire session, but her actual playtime,
She was in for maybe half hour, 45
half an hour, 45 minutes. But when she was in, she did do very well. She was very shy.
She rocked it.
But before her character got brought into the story, she was watching all of this develop, and she's passing notes.
Yeah, she's
Back
passing
and
notes,
forth
asking
to everybody.
questions.
Who's this character? What is he? Why does he have this? What does he have? I mean, I went back after the game and I read all the notes that she passed because I only got a few of them. I think there was one or two that made it to the other side of the table, and I read them and I'm like, man, she asked all the right questions. She was trying to understand the story so she could play her character, knowing so she knew how to play her character, basically, and she played it really well. She was shy.
I was absolutely flabbergasted because I was watching the entire thing happen. I mean, in these games, I like to treat new players just as I treat veteran players.
Right.
You know, do everything you can and put into the game as much as you can. That way, you get it back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And she jumped in head first
Yes, she did.
and just completely rocked it. So Echo, if you're listening to this, and I'm sure you are, congratulations, hon! You did fantastic. I can't wait to get you at the table again. And you're probably listening to this with mom and dad, maybe.
And I can't wait to see. And this is something I wanted to bring up with introducing very, very young players at a table full of Now I won't say we're very old, but we're older. And some of us are far more experienced. The dynamic of having a brand new 12-year-old girl sit down at our table, and then the way I already know how I'm going to play my character when I'm reacting to her, and it's going to be very protective. Like Cormac is automatically going to be extremely protective.
Well,
over Echo.
her character itself is also young. Being
Very
60
young.
years old as an elf. Or
Well, 40 years old as a young. So she's
That's
playing a
young,
young character.
so-
Yeah, like I said, I mean, a 40-year-old elf, they don't reach maturity until 50.
Something
So
like
she
that.
looks like she's 16. And Satan walked her into a bar. So I already know that. I already know what's going to happen. Like, I'm going to get real. I know Cormac is going to get extremely protective over her in every combat situation.
Yeah.
And to the point where I can almost see one path Cormac going down, and it's going to be the self-sacrifice.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully she, it works out really well, but I mean, I can see that potentially happening. Especially now that we have a player that dinged 5th level and everything's going to get real fast.
Yeah.
And we're bringing in a character and we're about to go on a quest north to
Very far.
a long trip, which we're going to encounter a lot of things. And we're going to be getting into combat, and it's going to be real interesting to watch this very inexperienced player experience all of that.
Yeah, experience everything. All of the old stuff is new for her.
Yeah.
You know,
gonna
and
be awesome.
It is absolutely amazing to be able to watch her play career expand the way it is.
Yeah.
So, what do we have next to cover?
Well, the next segment we were going to have, and we are going to have in future chapters of the podcast, is going to be a segment called Off the Wall, where we take listener comments and questions, via email, Facebook, Twitter, which you'll get all the plugs for those and how to get a hold of us at the end of the podcast. And we're going to take those topics and discuss them. If you guys have questions, want to know anything about what's going on in the game, by all means, email us. Or if you have, something that happened in your game and you want to email us or drop a comment on Facebook and be like, hey, this happened, and, if you're a DM or something, and, hey, this happened in my game, and it's kind of like what happened in your game. How do you think I should handle it, or something like
Absolutely.
that? Yeah. Any kind of questions or comments, or if you find something, if you don't agree with having a 12-year-old sit down at a table full of veteran players and 30-year-old men, if you don't agree, if you think that's, wrong or you don't agree with it, let us know.
Yeah,
and we'll talk
absolutely.
about it.
There are game shops, countrywide that will both disagree and agree with that. And if you're out there, if you're at your local game shop and you're listening to the State of the Game, you know what? What's the email address for this?
Well, I mean, do you want to get it? You said you had a topic for Off the Wall? Because we'll get
you
into
know
the
what?
email address and how to get a hold of us at the very end of the
Okay,
podcast. But you said you had a topic for Off the Wall.
As far as my off the wall, in the previous versions of State of the Game, I had a lot of people that would email in and ask me a lot of questions. And let me ask you, Jake.
Okay.
15 years ago, you were playing this game, so you got a little bit of experience.
A little bit, yeah.
You're playing with us now. As your very first off the wall topic, what is the one thing that another player character can do that just completely just sets you off the rails? Like, just completely gets you out of the zone of the game, and it takes a while for you to get back into it.
That a character can do or a player will
That
do?
a player will do. Like, what is faux pas? What is too taboo? What is the one thing that just will set you off? Because one of the biggest things, and dwell on that for a second,
Okay.
One of the biggest things that I see and hear all the time is
Touch my dice.
touch my dice.
Yeah.
You touched my dice. Oh my gosh, you touched my dice.
I can understand that one if I had dropped like $30 on a very expensive set of dice, or $100 or even more on a very expensive set of dice. Yeah, don't touch my dice,
Right.
Because I spent a lot of money on those dice, and those are my dice. Now I just last night ordered a couple of sets of dice that I am going to be protective of. I'm like, no, you cannot use my dice. I also have other dice that if you need a dice, if you need a D20 or you need
house
a
dice.
D4, house dice, or I have got spares. You want like I have. When we roll, when I let Echo roll her character, I was letting her roll my D6. But I have one set of D6. Those are spare dice. If you need D6, they're blue. Take them, because all of my dice are red and
Yep.
black and gray. But I have spare dice, and if you need them, but I can understand that. But as far as like the bad juju on the dice and everything like that, no, I
Not
don't.
very
I don't.
superstitious.
I'm not real superstitious with that. I will say, that the as soon as I kill something that is worthy, like that, I almost retired the D20 from the Dire Bullet fight, because it almost killed me. If I'd have struck the killing blow, I would have retired that D20
Yep.
and never played it again. But I didn't strike that killing blow, so I'll keep rolling that D20 until I'm the one that kills something.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I've got 3 tubes, long tubes of dice in this little treasure chest that I have. Every single one of them has been retired
Yeah.
because it's killed a player character.
Right.
So
Right. Now, if I kill a player or character, oh yeah. And I threatened Thorin last night. Because we were talking about Castellar the Red and his axe, Dahlia. And the thing is, I've read a little bit about her axe isn't, or his axe isn't named by name, but it is an axe from the book.
yes,
And it has an ability to do something that will kill the entire party.
yeah, huh?
It's a cursed axe, and it will kill the entire party if it's wielded improperly by someone that's not attuned to it. Because for a while there, when Brandon created this axe, I have that axe physically in my room. He made it look like an axe that I physically have in my room. I'm also a cosplayer. I do a character named from Reign of Fire named Denton Van Zandt. That's Matthew McConaughey's character. The axe that he carried in that movie, that's what Dahlia looks like. Verbatim. Black, silver edges, the twine wrap around it. It's half of a great axe. The other half is got the other half where the other blade would be is it's a pike. It's Denton Van Zandt's axe, and because of that, he knew I was automatically going, I'm gonna get that axe. And then I learned what it was, and I was like, Red can keep that axe. I don't want that axe. It'd be cool, but I don't want that one. Thorin, who is just a weapon hoarder, wants that axe, just like he wants Jacob's boomstick.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm going to get that axe. And I said, if you get that axe, if you even touch that axe, I will kill you.
I will kill you.
I will have Cormac come over there and crush your
Which
head like
in
a
two
grape.
ways, which in one way is kind of a meta because
It is kind of a meta because my character doesn't know that.
Yep.
So maybe I'll have to roll for I'll have to roll something.
we call it a roll for oh shit.
Yeah. Maybe I'll roll for what is it?
Insight maybe.
Roll for insight.
Yeah.
roll for insight, and if I roll a 20, I'm squishing your head. If I nat that thing, I'm going to squish your head, and I will go for a permakill, and then I'll retire that dice.
Yep.
Thorin, roll a new. You might want to roll a new character now.
So with that, man, what was
Something
what's
that would set me off another player can do. I like seeing players during combat stand up, get real into the game and everything like that. But when we are not in combat, and like you said, newer players will do this.
Yes.
Thorin did it last night.
Yes. I know right where you're going with this.
Getting really excited when and jumping the gun. Oh, I can understand you're really excited because it's a big pivotal moment in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down, take a breath, and figure out where we want to take this as a party.
Yes.
My biggest pet peeve, if you talk over me, if you interrupt me while I'm talking to another character, and I'm not talking like, okay, I'm talking to Balathan and Thorin is talking to Varix. That's fine. We're all RPing together.
It's all interplay.
But if I am talking to Landragosa and you talk to Landragosa while I'm talking to him,
basically turn jacking.
yeah,
Oh,
if you
okay.
turn jack me, I'm going to have my character punch you in the face.
Yep.
And I'm a
That's
half-orc.
pretty
I'm going to
common.
punch you hard.
That's pretty common across a lot of role playing games. People
Yeah.
turn jack and some people will. It just ruins games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does. It doesn't necessarily ruin games.
It ruins the dynamic of the players.
Yes, absolutely.
Because then all of a sudden, whether or not you try to meta it or not, if you're aggravated with the player that's sitting across from you, that is going to come out in the game.
Yes, it is.
There's been moments where I was just like, when Thorin did it a couple of times, and I was like, I'm gonna punch him. I'm gonna have Cormac punch him.
Yep.
It's happened a couple of times. So I say that's my biggest pet peeve is turn jacking.
I've seen that a lot over
Yeah.
the years too. Like characters and players will turn jack other players, and sometimes it's rightful. Sometimes there's
Like you're like no. It should be in game
sometimes
because you're about
it's
to make a
rightful.
crucial mistake. But you have to play that as your character is interrupting their character with a purpose.
for a purpose,
Not-
not just like, oh hey, you want
Because-
to go play cards or something like
Like
that.
Thorin did it last night. I was talking to Landragosa, and he was asking, or it was Landragosa or was somebody, and it was Red.
Yeah.
It was Red. I was talking to Red or something, and then Thorin asked him something completely off the wall about something totally different. It wasn't even important to what was happening in that situation. It was just like Thorin had this idea. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remembered. I wanted to ask him this. Hey, Red, da 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 da." And I looked at him. I'm like,
Yeah. Which is again going backwards, even into the previous segment. New players,
New players, and it's going to
veteran
happen.
players
Yeah.
really don't do that too often. Though when the veteran player does it, that's
There's a
what
reason.
sets me off.
Oh, okay,
because
yeah.
like if they do it for no reason, I will cut them off and say no. Sit there until basically like the high school teacher. Sit there until you're called upon.
Right.
That or you get docked experience. Veteran players should know better. I
Right.
expect that out of newer players.
Yeah.
But
And usually the players will handle it. I mean,
Yeah.
like we handled it last night.
Yep.
I mean, Varix turned to Thorin and went, "Varix, shut up,"
yep,
or went, "Thorin, shut up,"
yep,
twice.
yep.
Because he started saying something. It was like, dude, this has absolutely no relevance. There we go.
There you go.
There's the word I was looking for. Has absolutely no relevance to what is going on in this situation. This is not something that Thorin would bring up right now.
Yeah.
Bring that up later when
And the
we're down
one
in the
time,
barracks.
I felt so bad because Varix kept saying it, and then there was one.
Then he kept it going.
There was one very valid point, and Varix was like, "Thorin, shut up."
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
He actually did have a point.
He did have a point.
that
now.
wasn't. Yeah, he kept it going, and it was because it was funny.
Yeah.
And we're all kind of giggling and everything, But like, and then it was like, oh, Thorin. Wait, no, Thorin. What were you saying?
Yeah.
Sorry for telling you to shut up that last time. What were you going to say? So
Yeah.
It would have been great if Thorin was like, no.
I talked to
No.
him. I talked to him this morning about it. He was like, "No, I was going to do that." He's like, "I was just going to tell him Varix to go piss up a rope."
Yeah. Like you aren't going to get that. Could have helped you, but now, no.
Yeah. Now you're screwed, buddy. Figure it out on your own.
I'm passing you no notes, nothing. But yeah, it was that kind of thing. That will That'll set me off.
Yeah.
Turn jacking. And there's a time for turns. Combat. That is the time for turns.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you're
never turn jack.
No, not
during
combat.
combat.
I mean, there
Never,
can
never,
be
never.
like a little thing, like if you're
instant actions, things like that.
instant actions, or like if you just got done with your turn, you're getting ready to go to another turn, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to. And then you look at the DM, and if something minor, like I pick up my hand axe again.
Yeah.
Like you threw it, and then
Yeah, if
you're
you've
like,
got an
oh
action
yeah, I
left
ran
or
over there.
whatnot.
I ran over there and picked it up real quick, and you just want to make sure that, oh yeah, I have that back in my hand
Yeah.
before he goes to your. That way, you don't have to waste an action on your next turn to go do that.
Yes. But
Something
again,
like
that all
that
comes
is
with
a
know your class, know your race,
Yeah.
know the basics of the
Yeah.
game. That way, that doesn't happen. But
Yeah.
But yeah, no, on the off the wall segment, that's the kind of things that I like to cover.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, there's going to be other things. For those listeners out there, let us know what is it that just drives you up a wall whenever those things happen. Because I'd love to hear them. I'd love to discuss them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But that, I guess, with that, the closing of that segment, that is going to close this chapter of State of the Game. I'm going to close this off just like we close off the Fools That Follow podcasts. Just like Stan Lee said, every comic book is somebody's first comic book. Every podcast is somebody's first podcast, and every game could be somebody's first game. So,
As we proved.
as we did prove, yeah. If you haven't heard before, we are on iTunes and Stitcher. Subscribe to us and leave us a review. You can also catch us on Facebook.com/TheFoolsThatFollow or on Twitter @FoolsThatFollow and see all of the things that we look at throughout the week. Get updates on when new episodes are going to hit the internet. We also have a store with t-shirts, hoodies, and a lot more at thefoolsthatfollow.spreadshirt.com. I just put up 2 brand new t-shirts for the State of the Game.
They're very cool.
Yeah, so go buy our stuff and help us keep the lights on the podcast. Links for all of those things that I just mentioned are on the website, thefoolsthatfollow.podbean.com. Or as always, you can email us questions, comments about any of the other podcasts on the network at thefoolsthatfollow@gmail.com. Just remember to put the name of the podcast that you're referring to in the attention bar so I know which podcast you're emailing about, be it Fools That Follow, State of the Game, Cosplay Unmasked. So with that, I'm Jake Frost.
I am your friendly neighborhood dungeon master, Brandon Calloway, or DMDC for short.
This has been State of the Game, and until next time, may the odds ever be in your